Every election year is important. As citizens, we need to understand the issues so we can make informed decisions when casting our votes. That's why I have two special guests in the ring with me. In the blue corner is incumbent Democratic Senator from Wisconsin, Tammy Baldwin. And in the red corner is Republican challenger Eric Hovde. As host, I will be in the neutral corner, facilitating a robust discussion with each candidate's Health and Human Services platform. These interviews were recorded separately. I asked each of the candidates the same questions in the same order so that you, the voters, can make a side-by-side comparison and are ready to go to the polls. Let's go, champs. Hello, and welcome to In the Ring with Héctor Colón, the podcast that knocks out the challenges facing the social services sector and the people we serve. I am your host, Héctor Colón. In the ring with me today is Republican candidate for the U.S. Senate of Wisconsin, Eric Hovde. Thank you so much, Eric Hovde, for being here today with me.
It's great being here with you, Héctor.
Great. Just want to share a little bit about Eric Hovde. He's a Wisconsin native, born and raised in Madison. His father served as Undersecretary of the Housing and Urban Development in the Reagan administration. Eric is an entrepreneur since his 20s. Today, he is the CEO of Hovde Properties, a real estate company with buildings in Janesville, Waunakee, and Milwaukee. And he owns 3 banking companies. In 1991, at the age of 27, Eric was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. 7 years later, he and his brother Steve founded the Hovde Foundation, set up to fund research to find a cure for the debilitating disease. The charity has since expanded its mission to include improving the well-being and life opportunities for vulnerable children around the world. The Hovde Foundation provided over $24 million in grants to hundreds of organizations, including the Wisconsin-based Clean Lakes Alliance, the River Food Pantry, and Madison Reading Project. Eric is no stranger to politics. He previously ran for the U.S. Senate during the 2012 election. Eric continues to focus on changing the Affordable Care Act while keeping pieces regarding the pre-existing conditions. He has very specific plans around the fentanyl crisis facing Wisconsin and our country. All right, you ready for round one?
I'm ready for round one.
Let's go, champ. At a high level, what are your top 2 health and human services priorities?
Well, if you look at it, the cost of health care continues to rise, and the access to care is now starting to become very problematic. And that's not surprisingly just in our rural communities, which we've known has become an issue for now over, a decade. But even in a market like Madison, it's become difficult. I had my own personal experience in the past year where I developed afibrillation, where your heart starts beating at a irregular level, and sometimes you can permanently go into AFib. But if you're going in and out of AFib, the risk of it is it'll create blood clots, and the blood clots will go to your brain, and you'll have a stroke and could potentially die. It was really hard for me to get even in to see a doctor. I had to go to the emergency room twice because I couldn't get access just to my general physician. And then when I walked out of the emergency room, they said to me that you have to go get this test to look at your heart, and so we can understand what's going on. Well, that was October of last year this happened to me. And I tried. I couldn't even get a call back in the UW health system. And finally, I had to go over to Minnesota to go get my heart checked. Fortunately, everything worked out, very healthy heart and all the rest. The AFib went away by itself. It often doesn't. But do you know when I got the call to come get the test to check my heart? Now, this was October of 23. June of 24.
Wow.
Now, if I wouldn't have been able to seen a medical provider and AFib would have continued, I would have been in a very serious condition.
Yeah.
And I think of all the people that are having a real hard time. But look, the cost of health care has just continued to spiral up. The access to care has gone down. Think of women that giving birth in rural communities. There's a lot of places where they don't have access. They have to get in a car or drive for an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours. So we've got real problems. I don't think the Affordable Care Act lived up at all to its promises. It said it was going to flatline costs. It has done nothing like that. The cost of health care has risen more dramatically. In fact, if you go back and you look at, since 1980, what are the 2 highest rates of inflation in our whole country out of every area? The lowest rates of inflation is technology. The highest rate is healthcare, number 1, and higher education, number 2. And what is the correlation between both of those and everything else? Ever increasing government involvement. So why did Obamacare, other than providing for coverage of pre-existing conditions, which is important for me and so many people out there, because as you mentioned, at the age of 27 years old, when I thought I was Superman, I got diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, a very, very serious disease. A lot of people can lose their ability to walk, to see, to function, suffer terrible pain. I suffered through a lot of pain. And die.
Sure.
Fortunately, because of exercise, clean living, medication, and a strange event that happened at 40, my MS has largely been stable now for the last 20 years. But I'm very sympathetic to people that have pre-existing conditions.
Sure.
Sorry to go off topic, but I think it's important for people to understand. I understand those that are struggling with, a pre-existing condition. So I think that is an important part, and that's the one thing that I liked about Obamacare. But why has it fundamentally failed? For a variety of reasons. One,
can I ask you real quick before we get into that?
Yeah, sure.
Are your priorities cost, high cost, and poor access? Are those would be your 2 priorities?
Yeah, I mean, look, if you price people out of getting health care, either through higher and higher health care insurance costs or higher and higher medical costs, then people can't afford it, or it bankrupts too many families because they have a medical emergency. We're all going to, at some point in time in our life, have a medical emergency. That's just reality. And, it could be you get in a car accident, you slip and fall, you develop a disease. Who knows what it could be? But if you live long enough, you're going to have a health emergency. Yeah. And to have our healthcare system bankrupting people is crazy. Yeah. So we've got to drive down the cost. Then access to care, well, if you're in a medical emergency, you need access to care, and you can't get it, then that becomes life-threatening. So those, in my view, are by far the 2 biggest issues we have to wrestle with. So back to Obamacare. Why did it fundamentally fail? Because it's central planning at its worst. It was a group of people sitting in Washington, D.C. that thought they could figure out a very complex system and design things that only exacerbated the very problems they were trying to fix. Example, they allowed mass consolidation to happen. Now, maybe the big healthcare providers got that to sign off on supporting Obamacare because they had to give a lot of concessions to get them to back off from lobbying against it. But I'll give you a prime example. I live in Madison, Wisconsin. The biggest healthcare provider is the UW healthcare system. We have really 3 hospitals, only 3. UW Health, Meritor, and SSM. But what they allowed is UW Health, the biggest, to buy Meritor. Now, they still keep Meritor's name out there because they bought it through this convoluted thing, but 80% of Meritor is controlled by UW Health. Well, what happens in any kind of market when you have either a monopoly or oligarchy? Mm-hmm. They don't have to operate efficiently, and they can price their products however they want them because you're trapped in that system. Mm-hmm. I have a medical problem. I need help. You're stuck there. So that was a big problem. They also did something that sounded good at the time, but it was an absolute failure. They capped the amount that an insurance premium company could make on a dollar spent of medical care costs. Now you'd say, well, that sounds good because you're capping the profits of a health insurer and trying to keep their profits down. Yeah, but what they didn't realize is that took away the incentive for the health insurer to push back down on medical costs. So the only way a health insurer could make more money if you cap them at that amount, at a certain amount, is let healthcare costs move up. Because if you're spending, call it $1,000, it's a lot more than that, but $1,000 on medical care, and if you cap that at, call it 10%, then the healthcare provider can make that $10, right? Or no, I said $1,000, excuse me, $1,000, 10%, that's $100. So if you cap that, the only way they can make more money every year is by letting medical costs go from $1,000 to $1,200 to $1,500 to $2,000. So again, it was central planning at its absolute worst, thinking that they had this smart scheme that blew up in their face.
Sure.
So those are the big issues. And then I would say the last thing that it did is President Obama said you would be able to keep your family doctor. Now, I want everybody that's watching this and listening to this and think, is the family doctor even around? It basically wiped out the small family doctor. They're pretty much gone. Everything has been now these big, huge medical systems and doctor groups. So we need to get back to competition. That is critical to drive down costs and provide greater access.
I want to share an innovative program that we've developed at Lutheran Social Services. We call Healthcare Partnerships, and it's really designed to work with individuals who are high cost, heavy utilizers of, for example, the emergency room, and really poor outcomes. So they're driving up the cost, they have poor outcomes. We developed an intensive case management approach to wrap around services for this population. And we developed a pilot with Children's Hospital, Chorus. And after a year of work with them, the results are very promising. Dramatically decreased emergency room visits and other costly services, and dramatically improved outcomes. We would like to scale this program, and just wanted to get your thoughts. How does that sound? In terms of reducing costs, improving outcomes, and is it a program that we can scale? And are there any ways to incentivize this for partners like us to work with insurance and healthcare?
Look, I love what you're saying. I would need to know much more about the details and how it all works. Mm-hmm. But as you aptly said, a lot of our health care costs goes to a segment of society that is sick, and their constant use of emergency rooms, and we really got to get on with preventative care and how to get people healthy.
Yes,
that is a big part of my view with overall health care because I have MS, and a big part of why I have done better with MS is because I'm a fitness nut. and I eat a super clean.
Look like you can go a few rounds.
Yeah, I can go a few rounds. I used to fight martial arts, Taekwondo, and then I used to fight Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But your physical, your mental, and your emotional health are all integrated together. And the healthier we can have people be, the less they're going to use medical services. And certainly acute cases where chronic use, and that is a big problem. So I love the sound of what you just talked about. I just need to get into the detail to figure out how we can scale that, because we so desperately need innovation in our healthcare space. Healthcare is way behind the curve of using technology innovation to provide more affordable and better service.
Yeah. Great. That's the end of round one. How you feeling so far?
I'm feeling really good.
You're doing great,
Yeah,
champ.
thank you.
We're heading into round two. But first, a word from our sponsor, M3 Insurance.
People today are at a higher risk of experiencing mental illness, housing insecurity, and substance abuse. Do you know the health of your employees, your communities? How can you step up your benefits to better address their well-being? M3 Insurance helps businesses see beyond basic benefits and support employees where they live. It's a meet them where they are approach that LSS delivers to their clients every day. M3 and LSS offer real solutions to now commonplace realities that strengthen employees and inspire communities to thrive. Test your employee benefit strategy now by going to m3ins.com.
Okay, Eric, ready for round two?
I'm ready for round two.
Let's go, champ. So what do you think are the top 3 barriers to achieving health and well-being for Wisconsin residents?
Consolidation, which I just talked about. We need more providers and to come in. And we need to deal with more people coming into our healthcare system. We have a lack of nurses. We have a lack of doctors. Look, I've talked about the fact that we have to close our southern border to stop the wave of illegal immigration, but we need to fix our legal immigration, because I don't know if we're going to be able to address all our healthcare needs from nurses and doctors purely by our own population. Right. Look, the baby boom generation, I'm the last year of the baby boom generation. I was born in 1964. The first year of the baby boom generation was born in 46. And we are going to have a real problem when this baby boom generation starts moving into their 80s and kind of the period of end of life. And we don't have enough skilled bodies to do that. Mm-hmm. So we need to fix our legal immigration system to bring in doctors or nurses from other countries that want to come into this country. Yeah. I have a friend who's was engaged, now married, to a Japanese woman who came here working, ended up getting her nursing's license. They got married, and the hoops that she went through to become a U.S. citizen, even after being married, was crazy. And he was so mad. He's like, she could have flown over to Mexico, come up and over our southern border. She would have been given a credit card and cash and come right into our country. And yet, here's a person who did everything right and has the skills we want in this country. So we need to fix that issue. Another issue we need to address is price transparency. Everything you buy in life, go to the grocery store, your food, go to, buy a new cell phone, a piece of furniture, whatever it is, there's a price. You see what it is. It's only in healthcare. Right. You can't get what the price is. And by the way, you ask for the price, well, call an 800 number, you'll sit on the line forever, and then they'll give you maybe a price. And even if they give you a price, then what they end up billing you is often different. I had this. I unfortunately tore my bicep tendon in a kind of a freak accident. I ended up getting surgery on it. I negotiated ahead of time to understand what the costs. I went through all that. And then when I got the bill, it was different than what they had guaranteed me. So we need price transparency. That's going to force the big medical providers to run their business more efficiently, effectively, and use technology to, improve medical costs and services.
I agree that we definitely need a workforce, and immigration is part of that solution, but also individuals that we serve, like persons with disabilities and persons that might have mental health and might need a little bit of coaching and support from us, but are individuals that want to work. People coming out of incarceration, sometimes they have a felony and it's really hard for them to get a job, but we help them recover and help them get on a path to success so that they can become part of the workforce as well.
Héctor, that's a wonderful thing.
Yes.
Everybody deserves a second chance in life. Everybody deserves a second chance. And some people are blessed with more things, and some people have been, had great difficulties, disability or whatever. So however we can help those people, to become more integrated and be a contributor to society. I believe in the dignity of work. I believe, work gives us a purpose, a level of self-worth. So that's a wonderful thing, what you're doing.
Thank you. Let's talk a little bit about Medicaid. Medicaid makes up 25% of the population here in Wisconsin. And organizations like us rely on Medicaid funding to serve the people that we serve. When I was Director of Health and Human Services for Milwaukee County, I would hear a lot after the Affordable Care Act came into play. More people had Medicaid, but sometimes it would take up to a year for them to be able to get services, similar to your situation that you described earlier. And if a person has a mental health crisis, they can't wait a year. They need to have those services now. So my question is, do you believe that the Medicaid rates are adequate to meet the needs of the people we serve and support organizations like us who provide those services?
That's hard to answer. Look, Medicaid reimbursement rates in Wisconsin, I think, are one of the lowest in the country. I believe the lowest of the Midwestern states. I'm pretty sure there may be one that's a little bit lower, but it's hard for me to say because, what's a reimbursement rate in a rural community to a city, the procedure, all the rest. So it's hard to say, a blanket statement on reimbursement rates. I will say one thing that I mentioned earlier, healthcare really needs to invest in technology. I'm a believer in telehealth for a lot of basic things. It doesn't work for everything. Let's be very clear.
Yep.
It doesn't work for everything. I'm also a believer in the kind of Eastern medicine way where you're trying to prevent health crisis. The Western.
Talk a little bit about early intervention, prevention. You touched a little bit on that in the past earlier. What do you think about that?
I think it's critical. Look, we have to get our society healthier.
Right.
There is no question about that. Look, one thing I don't touch is processed food. Now, a lot of the big food companies may come after me for this, like some of the big hospital chains after this interview, but look, processed food, our body doesn't know how to break it down. So when I got an MS, I really, I had to move away from a high saturated fat. I don't ever eat any fried food. I never drink calories other than a beer or, a glass of wine or something like that. So I never touch soda. So I really had to be hypersensitive to everything I consume. But Eastern medicine is more focused on health, where Western medicine is more focused on fixing you or correcting a problem after you've already had a health problem. We need to incorporate both. We need to get our society healthier. The keys to health, and I talk about this all the time, every quarter in my companies, when we do our quarterly meetings, I don't just talk about, what are we hitting our financial goals? What's happening with this or that or bonuses. I always have a health section because, healthy colleagues will do better. And physical, mental, and emotional health are interlinked. And I believe we all want a happy, healthy life. So, we know from all the different studies, diets are so critical. Exercise, so critical to our overall health. Staying away from certain substance, smoking, excessive drinking, critical. Things like technology. This phone. This phone has done so much damage to mental health. We have younger people in such mental health crisis because of social media and people staring at this all the time, even to the point of, even from a physical standpoint, because they're looking down, we know people's necks are getting out of line and sloping and all the rest. So it's insane what this dang device has done, and the rates of anxiety and depression. And if you've ever experienced anxiety or depression, once you go in, it takes time to get out. So I am such a believer in preventable medicine, health, incorporating all, as I said, physical, mental, and emotional health to drive, a healthier society. And that will be the long-term solution to driving costs down and making people better.
I agree with you. It is the long-term solution, which makes it so difficult in government. Because we're talking about election cycles and short-term wins and press releases. And so I'm closing up this round, but I just want to summarize by saying I'm proud that you believe in early intervention and prevention, because that's what's really going to make us a healthier society and what's really necessary to make those investments for that long-term strategy.
Yeah, and look, type 2 diabetes, because my wife's father and brother has it, and so she was sensitive to it. She learned that, she's on the verge of that. My wife really changed her diet, and she's been able to keep herself now for over 10 years below that level where she'd have to, would be a type 2 diabetic and insulin and all the rest. So she was able to say, okay, this is a big risk factor to me, and then really change aspects of how she was living to reduce that risk.
Great. Well, that ends round 2. We got one more to go.
Wow.
Let's take a break.
All right.
Subscribe to In the Ring Podcast now on YouTube. Like, follow, and share on social media and wherever you get your podcasts. Doing so will allow LSS to expand our reach and message so others within our sector can benefit from these important conversations. Let's go, champs. Are you ready for the final round?
I'm ready for the final round.
Let's go, champ. What are you feeling about the political polarization in our two-party system? Does it exist?
100%, and it's one of my top topics. I've said my 4 big issues are economic security and what's happened to us economically and with inflation, all the rest. Our domestic security, look at the crime issues, the problems with the open border, the fentanyl crisis, which I talk endlessly about, our international security. The world has never been more engulfed with conflict. And I think a lot of that came because of how we withdrew from Afghanistan. I don't want to get off on that, but and I had no problem ending the war, just the way we handled it. But the 4th issue I always talk about is we've become too divided as a country, and it's wrong. A house cannot stand if it's divided. And, politics has become a blood sport. Look, I've gotten into this. I ran because I love my country. I didn't like the direction of my country. And yet every day I get some crazy ad accusing me of something, I've never done or said or taking things out of context. So
you've been rolling with the punches.
yeah.
Bobbing and
Well, absolutely, absolutely. Fortunately, God blessed me with two things: a lot of energy and very thick skin. But no, we've become way too divided. That's why I did that television ad for 4th of July talking about the beauty of our country, what our Constitution gave us, all these civil liberties, freedoms, and prosperity, but we've become too divided. We have to stop putting on the blue jersey or red jersey and fighting amongst ourselves. We have to put on the red, white, and blue jersey and come together to fix these problems, like our health care issue.
I love that approach. The red, white, and blue, and really bringing us together. You know, I would often hear that back in the 80s, politicians would have rigorous debate on the floor, Republicans and Democrats, and be very focused on their core values and beliefs. But then they'd have dinner afterwards with wives and get together, and it seemed like there was more friendship, even in the midst of their disagreements. Doesn't feel like that is happening anymore. Do you agree? Or
100%. You get people that just vote down their party lines. Look, who I'm running against, Senator Baldwin, votes 95.5% with her party, whatever they want. I believe you have to reach across the aisle. I don't know where compromise became a dirty word in Washington, D.C. Look, in the world of business, if you're not willing to compromise, you're never going to get anything done. You have to compromise. Otherwise, you'll just be sitting there doing nothing by yourself because nobody will want to deal with you. So it's only in the world of politics, this modern politics. And again, it's such a blood sport during the political process. You know, I've been trying to run more positive ads, more talking about issues. But we have to end this just hyper-partisanship division. We have to come together as a country.
What do we do, and what do we need to do to strengthen those relationships?
Lower the rhetoric. Stop these nasty personal attacks. Lower the rhetoric. That's the first thing. Second, you got to go reach across the aisle. If I'm successful and I get to the U.S. Senate, I'm not going to just go meet every Republican senator. I'm going to go meet every Democrat senator, and I'm going to engage in conversations with them. What are your priorities? And if one of their priorities is one of mine, then let's run with it. You know, my biggest thing I want to address is stopping this fentanyl crisis. We're losing 100,000 young Americans every year to this poison.
And it doesn't discriminate. The rich, the poor, the Democrat, Republican.
All walks of life. Mm-hmm. All walks of life. And the heartbreaking stories I hear. And yet Washington, D.C. has done nothing about this. And, you know, how do you advance the ball if the two sides won't talk to each other? So look, I plan to go reach across the aisle, meet everybody, see if we can find common ground. How do we tackle the fentanyl crisis? How do we tackle the inflation issues that's causing so much economic pain? How do we deal with the healthcare issues? But we have to come together. We can't fix these problems until we come together, and not everything needs to be politicized.
That's great. How are you going to engage community organizations to better understand the needs of communities and where they live?
By going, meeting them, and listening to them. I just came from a meeting with 12 or 13 pastors in the Hispanic community and the Black community. Mm-hmm. The only way you can engage is by sitting down and listening to what they have to say and what are their concerns, and addressing how you think you can be helpful and engaging in a dialogue. Yep. So, look, I didn't get to where I was in life without working. I mean, I'm basically a workaholic, except I like taking vacations.
Good.
I don't typically get home most nights.
Get some rest, champ. Don't overdo it.
Well, I used to
get some burnout.
Yeah. I used to not get home till 7:30 every night. Now I'll probably get home most nights at 9:30 or 10 and eat dinner at that point. But no, you got to go get engaged. You got to work. Too many politicians don't work, don't do much, and they just talk past each other and blame each other, and nothing gets done.
Good. That's the end of round 3. You did great. But before I let you go, I have to see how you roll with the punches.
All right.
And answer the following questions with the first thing that comes to mind. What is your favorite Wisconsin destination?
That's tough because I'm torn between my love of the Wisconsin Badgers and my love of the Green Bay Packers. So Lambeau Field or Camp Randall. I also, you know what? Lake Mendota. I got up this morning. I don't get to ski that often because of this campaign, and it was a glass day, and I reached out to a buddy who lives on the lake, and I said, hey, it's a perfect day to go take a water ski. It was 6:30 in the morning. It was a little chilly this morning. It was 54 degrees out, but I was like, no way, I'm going to go out and go water skiing. So I love our beautiful lakes. We have 15,700 and something lakes in our state, and our state is so beautiful, and so the lakes, but, you know, I'm a big diehard Packer and Badger football fan, and
Awesome.
I've spent a Saturday and Sundays at both.
Great. Yeah, I'm a big fan of both and love the lakes as well. You talked a little bit about this, but how do you incorporate wellness into your weekly routine?
Every day. I wake up, the first thing I do is I drink 2 glasses of water squeezed with lemon, have my tea. I sit down, read the Bible, and then I start warming up my body, and I literally exercise every day. That some days it gets squeezed, but an hour and a half every day. And it's central to my life. Obviously, because I'm a Christian, I pray for my mental health a couple times a day. So you got to take mental breaks. I do not pick this up after a certain hour because the blue light affects your sleep, and you don't want that, you know, stuff going into your head before you're trying to get to sleep, because good sleep is so critically important.
Yeah.
So
Do you use the glasses? The blue blockers?
Well, no, I put my screens on after a certain hour where it dims out the blue light, but I just purposely, I don't put my phone by my bed. My wife has one in our room just in case one of our daughters was an emergency, but I try to take breaks from, you know, those devices. But health is such an important part of all aspects of my life.
That's great.
And, you know, what I eat, what I do, you know, trying to meditate when I can. I'm very big into cold therapy. Out of all my crazy videos for the campaign, the biggest one was when I crunched through the frozen Lake Mendota and sat in it because cold therapy, I started it because I work out a lot, and as I've gotten older, my joints, my knees, you know, my ankles and all the rest start to ache, so I did it for that. But then I started realizing, wow, there's a lot of other benefits. It lifts your spirits, and it improves your immune system.
Yep.
So
good advice there. I have a lot of those things in common. I take cold showers as well, and it helps me get ready for the day. Which of our 4 Wisconsin seasons do you prefer, and why?
that is tough because it's summer and fall. I love June. This June just rained all the time. But I love our just light, bright days that go on forever and how gorgeous the weather is. You know, 4th of July, it's such a fun holiday. You know, I like blowing off fireworks. I'm a bit of a pyromaniac, I have to admit that. But I also love our falls. I mean, our fall colors. I love hiking. So, you know, it's such a beautiful time, football season. So it's summer and fall. It's hard for me to pick between the two. If I was forced to, I'd probably say summer, but that's close.
Yep. All 4 seasons in Wisconsin are beautiful.
Yeah, I mean,
I just wish the winter was a little not as long. But
I like early winter. I don't even mind the real cold of January. When the lake freezes, I'll go out and cross-country ski and do things outside. For me, it's just the drag when it goes on into February, and then we get into March and April where it's slushy, 40 degree and rain. There's just not a lot you can do in 40 degree and rain. Not fun being outside with whatever you're doing.
Yeah. Last question. What advice would you give to young professionals that are just starting out?
Great question. A number of pieces of advice. First, when you're young, explore everything you can. Find out what you're passionate about, what clicks with you, because you're going to be a lot happier in your life when you find something that resonates with you instead of going down a path where you're just not happy with. Second, it's your stage of life to work hard. You want to work hard when you're young in your middle ages, so when you get to be older, you're not having, you've built up savings and you can, not work as hard because your energy level, your health may not be as good and all the rest. 3, take some risk. It's your time in your life to take risk. In your 20s or your early, mid, even late 30s, if you fail at it, well, you got time to recover. And life is part of failure, being successful in business. Not everything's going to be rosy. You're going to have your stumbles. So take your risk, because it's a lot harder to take those risks when you have a family and kids and a lot of other people to support. So those would be the 3 big pieces of advice.
Great advice for the young ones out there. I think that's great advice for them to follow. I'm sorry, we have one final question.
All right, love it.
What is your game plan for spreading the word about our sector and the needs that we discussed today?
It's amazing how most politicians are not even talking about it. And I talk about it all the time in my speeches. Maybe I'm more hypersensitive to it because of my MS, because of this incident I had with AFib, and I had another strange one with a blood clot that I had the same thing where I could only get to the emergency room and sit there 12 hours at a clip, and then the next time 11 hours. And seeing a lot of people, I have so many colleagues and seeing the struggles that they have. So, talking about the issue. Washington, again, is broken. It's not getting things done, and it needs to get moving and get things done. I'm a guy of action, and I'm not running for this U.S. Senate seat to go sit there and twiddle my thumbs. I want to get things done and make this country better.
Great. Thank you so much, Eric, for getting into the ring with me. Good luck in November.
Thank you.
And appreciate you being on the show.
It's great being on your show, Héctor. Really enjoyed it.
As always, you can find all interviews on our podcast website. Subscribe to In the Ring on YouTube and follow us on Twitter and LinkedIn so you don't miss any of these important updates and interviews in the future. Thank you again, Eric, and thank you to our sponsor, M3 Insurance. Con mucho cariño, with much affection. Bye.